Do you feel like no matter how hard you practice, you're just not getting anywhere? That might be because there are certain habits that beginner guitar players should be aware of. So here at Pick Up Music, we've come up with a list of 5 good habits to apply to your technique that will improve your guitar playing right away. So the focus here is going to be technical facility and maximum efficiency. If there's ever a time where you're trying to learn this lick, it's just too fast for you, or you're trying to play this rhythm, these good habits are going to address those things and hopefully make life a little easier for you. So let's get started with habit number 1. Watch out for your thumb position. One thing people ask us a lot is, where does your thumb go, right? Does it go up here? Does it go down here? The answer to that, honestly, it just depends. It depends on the context. It depends on the situation. It depends on the position of your guitar. So if you're playing chords or you're doing bends, you want to do something where you can be a little bit flexible. But what you don't want to do is do something unnatural that puts your hand in an awkward position. Also, something to keep in mind, when you're watching your favorite guitar player, I wouldn't get too hung up on their technique and trying to match what they're doing. What they're doing works for them. Jimi Hendrix, for example, if you're watching Jimi Hendrix, obviously you'll notice that he has his thumb way above the neck. He's doing a ton of bends. That technique works great for him. And so really think about what works for you, and I think you're going to have a much better time. Lastly, the thumb should be placed in a way that caters to your wrist. So you want to make sure that your thumb isn't placed in a way that puts your wrist in an awkward position. You don't want to put your wrist like this. You don't want to bend it too much. You also don't want to bend your wrist inward like this. And that's going to go on to our next point. Habit number 2 is to keep your wrist relatively straight. So obviously, depending on the situation, you're going to have to bend your wrist one way or another. You probably don't want to bend your wrist like this. It's worth trying to angle your wrist, trying to find a position that will straighten that out. This is not only going to prevent your fingers from having maximum movement, but you could really hurt your wrist in the long run. And the same goes for bending your wrist the other way around. You don't want to bend your wrist in a way where your palm is touching the back of the neck. This, again, is going to prevent your fingers from really being free to move the way that they want to. Habit number 3 is avoid flying fingers. Now, what does that mean? If, let's say, you're learning a scale or you're learning a lick, let's say I'm playing this scale, what I want to avoid is flying fingers. You don't want your fingers flying off the fretboard like this. So to play like that requires a lot of energy. What we want to do is we want to keep our fingers close to the strings and play the scale in a way where we really preserve our energy. Making a habit of keep your fingers close to the strings will make life a lot easier, and you'll be able to play things much more efficiently. This also applies to chords. If I'm playing a chord and I have a finger that isn't in use, you want to make sure that you keep that finger close by. Now, if you have, like, for example, my pinky stretched out like this, all of a sudden I feel all this tension in my wrist and I feel a lot of tension in my hand. So bringing this closer to the strings will not only help you to relax your hand, but will also allow maximum efficiency when I change to different chords. Habit number 4 is hold your pick with a light grip. Now, you want to make sure that you aren't holding your pick too tightly. Holding your pick too tightly is going to lock up all your fingers and your entire hand, but it's also going to tighten up your entire arm, even your entire body. If you try holding your pick really tightly and play really softly, you're going to have a really hard time. Check it out. You're going to strain your entire arm pretty much. But now let's do the opposite. Let's hold the pick nice and light and really, really loose. It's so much easier to do. One thing to keep in mind when holding your pick is how much surface area you're covering with your fingers. So if you find that you're having a hard time keeping the pick in your hands, try to cover a little bit more of the pick with your fingers. Even if you have a light grip, as long as you're covering a good amount of the pick with those fingers, you're going to find that your grip is going to improve. Lastly, you want to make sure that you hold your pick light enough so that it doesn't lock up your wrist, which will take us to good habit number 5. watch out for your wrist movement. When talking about wrist movement, you want to make sure that you don't do any mechanical movements or anything too rigid. I think having a loose wrist is going to be really important here. For example, if I am strumming some chords, I'm playing this strumming pattern, you want to make sure that you do not strum mechanically. Kind of like that, right? And what happens is you get a very rigid way of playing. So let's do the opposite. Let's make sure we're holding our pick lightly, make sure that wrist is nice and loose. Just natural movement from the wrist is going to be really important here. So just make sure that wrist is nice and loose. Make sure you're just kind of developing this natural momentum with your arm. Same thing goes for when you're playing single note lines. If I'm playing a scale, for example, you don't want to play in a way that's too mechanical. Kind of like that, right? And another problem that I see sometimes is people trying to be really careful with small movements like that. You want to make sure that you have a little bit more range of motion available to you. The space between the strings, it's pretty small, but really trying to feel how much range of motion is really available to you is going to be really good for you in the long run. Everyone has different body types, different ways of playing, so these are not hard rules, but I think that they'll definitely help you in your playing. So those are the 5 good habits that I think all beginner guitar players should know. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you like videos like this one, feel free to check out our Pickup Music channel.